Hey, Kim. Oh, we're recording already. Oh, hey, dude.
Hi, Vivian.
Put on my earphones or else you're half along my work email notifications. I just share screen real quick just to make sure I got that I can, because sometimes.
Yeah, I just said it because I know like we have issues sometimes with people forgetting. Right?
Yeah, or can you see the PowerPoint okay now?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so. Okay, cool. Oh, looks good.
Looks like we're missing one artist, Bumin.
How's everyone doing?
I'm good. Thank you for asking. Happy Monday.
Yeah, happy Monday, everyone.
Monday.
Happy Monday.
Nice to meet you, Kazuko. Missed you last week.
Oh, nice to meet you. Yeah, I'm sorry I missed the meeting. I was in the mountain.
I saw your picture of your house. Is that your house right now in the mountains?
No, that's in Japan.
Oh, okay.
Like yeah, it's the view from my home, my mom's parents' house. But
Nice view. I was trying to fit it into the slide.
that's okay.
But then
I'm
I
like,
thought
"Oh,
the ones with works
yeah.
precedence.
We're gonna give another minute, so we're gonna start at 3:16. Okay, everyone, time to start this panel talk. Good afternoon. My name is Narong Tintamusik, and I am one of the co-curators for Tree with Half a Root with my co-curator Phan Nguyen. We are pleased to offer a virtual panel talk consisting of artists from Tree with Half a Root, an exhibition that showcases how artists of Asian descent use nature-based imagery and materials to explore themes such as belonging and identity. The show is currently up at Mountain View College Cliff Gallery until December 3rd of this year. The talk is moderated by Dr. Vivian Lee, the Lupe Murchison Curator of Contemporary Art at the Dallas Museum of Art. Topics include exploring the artist's respective practices and their relationships between the outside world and themselves. The participating artists are Du Shaw, Kazuko Goto, Bumin Kim, Hugo Shi, Adrianna Touch, and Sangmi Yoo. To view the exhibition in person, we will put down the exhibition address and hours in the comments section below. We would like to thank the participating artists and Dr. Vivian Lee for the time and energy with this talk. We would also thank Allison Starr, Mountain View College Cliff Gallery's manager, for this opportunity to exhibit in her space and for a collaboration in realizing this exhibition. Allison, thank you so much. We couldn't have done this without you. We will have a dedicated Q&A section after the talk. Please type out your questions to the participants in the comments section. We also ask the audience to kindly mute themselves during the duration of the talk. I will now turn over the meeting to my co-curator, Kim Phan Nguyen, for introductions. Kim, could you please introduce yourself, our participating artist, and our moderator, please?
Yeah, thank you, Narong. So my name is Kim. I'm one of the curators here. Just a quick about me. I recently graduated from TCU's art history program. I'm generally kind of a contemporary art nerd with interest in community artists and emerging artists. So today we have the talk separated into two groups. There's group A, which consists of Du, Adrianna, and Bumin. And then we have group B, which is Sangmi, Kazuko, and Hugo Shi. So I'm going to kind of call on each artist and you can say a little bit about yourself. So Du, if you want to go first. Oh, Du, you're on mute.
Totally forgot. Well, hello everyone. My name is Chau. I'm one of the visual artists. I have a full-time job in the hospital as a pathology clinical coordinator. And ceramic is part of, I start out with just play, playing with clays, end up to be something that I fall in love with, and end up went to New York, Alfred University, and have both my bachelor and master degree at Alfred. So then I came back and end up teaching as adjunct ceramics. Yeah, that's about it.
Great, thank you, Du. Adrianna.
Hi, everyone. I'm Adrianna Touch. I'm currently a graduate student at TCU in emphasis in sculpture. My interests lie within mainly ceramic work and kind of exploring my different aspects of my identity and things of that nature.
We have Bumin next.
Hi, I'm Bumin. I'm from Korea, and it's been like for about 10 years since I came to Dallas. And I graduated UNT in major in drawing and painting. And I use thread for my work right now. And I really appreciate that I was invited to this show, and it was great. And I really happy to meet you all over here. Thank you.
Okay, so group B starts with Sangmi.
Muted. Thank you for coming. My name is Sangmi Yoo. You can call me Sangmi. Oftentimes they use Sangmi. But by the way, I was born in Korea and came here in United States in 1996. I'm currently teaching at University, Texas Tech University in Lubbock, Texas. It's in West Texas as a professor and associate director of art. And I've been doing print-related creative activity. I use installation and lithography, traditional printmaking techniques mixed together. Also work with digital technology. We'll talk about that a little later. And I'm kind of currently very interested in some botanical elements found in public space and built environment. So I'm really excited about introducing my work. Also have this wonderful exhibition with the cohort curated by both Kim and Narong. And I thank you guys so much for creating this wonderful space for all of these artists. Thank you.
All right, next is Kazuko.
Hello, my name is Kazuko, and thank you so much for including me to this exhibition. I think my vent, like air conditioning, is kicking in, so there might be some noise in the background. Sorry. I'm originally from Kyoto, Japan, and I've been here. I'm not sure when I came, but about 20 years ago, maybe. And I'm currently teaching as an adjunct at the University of North Texas, and I do teach printmaking. And for my work, I mainly do relief printing, which I do focus on the Japanese woodcut. So I do that Japanese relief technique. And I like to grow stuff on my own. I spend lots of time in garden. I also like to bake and all that. So and fermenting, so it's everything kind of growing related. And I do like kind of like for my work, I like to work with some kind of cycle with the nature, how it kind of ends the life but's beginning the new life at the same time. So that's kind of what I do.
All right, and last but not least, Hugo Shi.
Oh, hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me here. My name is Hugo Shi. I'm a painter. I do some drawing and paintings. Also, I would like to have some do some digital work. I was born in China and then immigrated to the United States. At this moment, I'm an adjunct instructor for at 2 different schools, and then I work on my own art project. Yeah, thank you very much.
All right, thank you, everyone. So our last introduction is the wonderful Dr. Vivian Lee. She is a Libby Murchausen, I don't know how to say that, but curator of contemporary art at the Dallas Museum of Art. She has specialty in post-war and contemporary art in Asia. She's previously worked at the Worcester Art Museum in Massachusetts, the Museum of Fine Arts in Houston, and the Guggenheim. She's contributed to various publications, and she also got her PhD from the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor.
Thanks so much, Kim, for all those introductions, and everybody for introducing yourself. It's great to also learn more about the artist after seeing the exhibition, which I did 2 weeks ago. So thank you to both Kim and Narong for inviting me here to be moderating this talk. I'm very excited to be sharing space with all of you, as well as people that are viewing from home. And so, so I just want to congratulate everybody, and also that while it is, I noticed when I was walking through the show that while it is a group show with different visual and conceptual interpretations of nature, what struck me the most was how the works cohere so beautifully well around this shared palpable interest in the often very uncontrollable nature of materials themselves. And this process of becoming the work, which I think all the artists here probably can speak to, and how they approach their material. And as you could hear already, it's a vast range of materials that's covered in the show. So I think especially since last year, many of us have gotten more closer to nature, whether physically or figuratively, in our walks, maybe between our Zoom meetings or teaching perhaps. So especially this show, I felt when I entered it was kind of sharing that similar space of how nature teaches us about healing, as well as self-awareness of the uncontrollable nature, and also the systems that we live in. So I just wanted to start out by sharing my screen. I know not everybody here has been to the show, so I just want to also make sure to show images. So just kind of in a way also walking through this space, when you first enter the show, the very first work you see on your left is this spectacular work by Du, Fern Leaves. And it's hard to see, but these fern leaves are green porcelain casts of Du's hands, I found out. And so because porcelain also shrinks in size when fired, you see that this work diminishes in size as it proceeds down until you get to the very bottom, to the ground, with these precious small hands at the bottom. So I just wanted to begin by talking with you first, Du, about how you chose porcelain. And since your other work in this show is also porcelain. And so just your interest in porcelain and the process of working with this material and how that informs your final work.
I always forget to unmute. Well, thank you, Dr. Lee. Porcelain have always been, even in my art statement, have always been the foundation of my works. I love the touch of porcelain. It's almost like touching cream cheese, you know, how the cream cheese. So I love cooking also. So then because of that, porcelain have so much histories that I'm not going to go into it. But that just that tactile experience, that touch in clay, that central that somehow connect me back to earth, so clay also have so much memories, because if you stretch your clay in one way, it shrink back into another way. So porcelain have that tendency to have that. So I start out with working with variety of clays when I start out with. And then I discover porcelains actually is my medium, because the advantage of porcelain is I love the purity of porcelain. It's easy to get the intensity of colors that I like. Other clay material won't give me that. That I also like the translucency, because at a certain point I like to make work that have that translucency. The advantage of porcelain, you can go on the toughness, the durability, and also you can fire porcelain to a very high temperatures. So sometimes I use porcelain to make dinnerwares, very easy to clean up, you know, like porcelain. And so that the list can go on. So also other mediums, porcelain, I have total control of how I want the recipe of porcelain, because I routinely mix my own porcelains. So the material is like all porcelain have the common ingredients like clay. The clay is like kaolin, garlic kaolin, and then in my recipes, I routinely just have the 3 simple ingredients. Just got a kaolin, Kona F4 feldspar, and silica. So I usually connect my recipes mixing the slips with baking a cake. You know, you usually baking cake with you're always using the basic ingredients for a simple cake. You need flour, you need sugar, you need eggs. So just the basic 3 ingredients. I can keep mixing the different variety, a little variety of porcelain based on the fine temperatures. So the porcelain, the one good thing about porcelain, you can go all the way up to 2,550 Fahrenheit without having problem that frying in the kiln that melt everything down using lower temperature. So I have some incident when I first went to grad school and using low 5 temperature clays, and I had ruined the whole kilns because I'm overcooked. So being porcelain, you never have to, you can keep fighting it. You're not going to melt the whole kiln down for that. So I'm not going into anything more, because I think I can go on to histories and I can keep going. So porcelain. So I'm going to say one more things about the technique of this piece, and then I will probably. So the technique of the piece is as Dr. Lee have said, is the mold making slip casting. So I'm using the liquid clays to cast these pieces. Is my hand from the increment I'm making 16 plaster molds all the way down to the increment of the smaller hands. And that's just, I call that the first generation for the pieces. So the second generation I have from the 16 mold all the way down to the 25th molds. That's the next body of my second generation of porcelain hands. And then now I'm working on the third generations of hands. So should I go to the next slide, or should I go?
I just also want to say, like, porcelain seems like it matches so well your ambition because you're really pushing this material. And I was wondering, I mean, also that's beautifully this reproduction that you include, or this reproduction of your hand that's kind of beautifully adds another layer of nature to this, like the body in this as well. Was there, I liked how this work, as well as your other work as well, in the show Among the Wildflowers, they're both have an interesting relationship to space. Could you talk a little bit about, especially this one, I loved how the fern went all the way to the floor. Is this something that you have you played with space a lot with your other works as well, or is this more for this show?
I love Narong's and Kim's title, Trees with Half a Roof. So I'm actually finding the work specifically, the pieces specifically for these exhibitions. So yes, I deal with installation work. I also, as you know, I have so many helps because routinely doing installation work is challenging when you have to do it by yourself, installing the work. So the hands does have, in my introduction, I didn't mention that I was born in Vietnam. So I'm much older than many of the group of artists here because I'm actually lived through the Vietnam War. So during the war, so as you can see, so my hands is just, it remind me, the piece is the open hands that talk about hopes, what is it that we make the work that when you have the worst time in your life during that time is what is the hope, having that hope is that progression to keep us moving forward in life, So this piece similar to, and yet the technique is totally different. So most of my work that I'm making dealing with a lot of challenge in my life. So when I install this piece, is also I'm going through multiple challenge. So as I walk into the room, I just feel like the hands are just like falling down. It's just almost like it's not a perfect, beautiful form. It's just one of those. It's not straight perfect. It just for me is dealing with that that challenge of how the wall and the floor and dealing with that elements. So having that template is wonderful. I can stress this piece all the way up to the wall or down all the way to the floor. So I routinely having a template to move the piece around until I find how to create that contemplative space. When I found that, okay, that's it. And yes. And
yeah. Go ahead. Did you want to talk about this work?
Yeah, I just briefly talk about these pieces. Actually, this piece is so different from the technique with the hands because I started with these projects almost 20 years ago when my mom's having cancer, that I spent time with her. So the only way I can make this piece is when I'm next to her, watching her, so that I can use this porcelain and make this little hand pressing piece, translucent porcelain pieces. So this is a totally different challenge in my life. So look like every piece is about work having memories, having a stories behind that gone through that challenge. And so when I titled this piece Our Cancers, just like how nobody liked the names because we going through much challenge right now with this time. So I think people are much more happy have flowers and things than having connect to tumors and cancers and think about the title of the work. So I think I titled the work reflect with the time that we are in when I make the pieces. Thank you.
Thank you, dude. That's very beautiful. Working with the times we are in. And next, I just wanted to go to Adrianna. Your work is also working in ceramics, but it's a different type of material, wood-fired clay. These vessels especially have a very interesting glaze that I would love for you to talk about. This very thick glaze that kind of covers the works, almost like icing. But I was also especially taken by how you use these kind of intimate forms and scale of the work, and also their presentation on what looks like humble scrap wood. So Adrianna, can you talk about a little bit about your materials and how the process informs the creation of your work? And also I was interested in seeing how gender plays a role in your works, because at least in the works in this show, such as this one, Mothering Aspara, kind of allude to, and some other works, the other works I'll show in the next couple of slides also alludes to kind of a motherly or female
Yeah, thank you for those interpretations, Dr. Lee. So the material I'm using is it's a coarse stoneware, which is a type of clay that takes on heat a lot better, so it does work in high heat. And it's a clay body mainly, at least is good for hand building techniques, which a lot of my pieces are made out of. So they have grog in it, so they can kind of take on the abuse of my hands. But I think abuse is not the right way of how I work with clay. In a way, I'm kind of working with clay and like, it's kind of like a dance in a sense, like I see certain curves and certain gestures the clay makes as I make with my hands. And I kind of surrender a little bit of control when I am working in this hand building method. In this case, I was trying to gain a little bit of control since there is a wired armature inside the clay that helped me guide the form of this piece. So, and also the glaze that we see here is known as Shino, which is I know it's like a very ancient loaded glaze that's derived from Japan that I took from the great, I think Warren Mackenzie's glaze recipe. So in a sense, the way I like how Shino works here is that it's a really funky glaze where I really can't predict what it does in the kiln. So it's another sense of like, in a way, surrendering control from in the work and just kind of allowing it to have accidents or things happen. And so this kind of crawling effect happens as the glaze ages. And that's something that I also very attracted to. I guess in a sense, these pieces are propped up with certain wooden structures that I either found or made myself. Like I guess in the previous slide, we were looking at mothering Apsara. It was kind of like also a play with some scrap wood I've had around in the studio and finding weird, precarious ways, because I really have a funny relationship with pedestals and I'm not a big fan of them. So it's like this weird push and pull, like there's things I want to control and there's things that I don't allow myself to begin to take total control over. As you can see that this pedestal is kind of made in a precarious way, but I like that I did take some agency and wanted to make my own pedestal.
Especially when you mentioned shinoware, I thought about shinoware. I mean, it's a 16th century Japanese kiln. I mean, it's the shino kilns. So, but theirs are so, at least what you see mostly are usually kind of trying for perfection, whereas yours are much more, I mean, the fissures, the kind of it's not totally covering either. Like you said, it's also letting the glaze work on the vessel itself. So, and then can you talk about? I mean, I don't know. Let me know if this isn't something to notice, but I just noticed from your titles, like her basket, mothering Aspara, and I think is this? I looked it up. I'm going to butcher the word, but yeah. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So I guess in this work, it's called Nom Kruot pot, which is basically a reimagining of a pot that I found my dad cooking in with. Nom Kruot is basically, I think it's shared between maybe even in Vietnam and Thailand, this like kind of street food where you eat, it's made out of like rice, tapioca flour, and made with coconut milk. And it's like this like coconut pancake made with also like green onions, and you can dip it with fish sauce or like a homemade fish sauce, not the one straight from the bottle. And in a sense, there is a weird theme of like, I guess like either like women activities or things associated with women, like in Mothering Apsara, I tend to be inspired and in reference a lot of the Apsara figures, which are basically like female deities in Cambodian mythology, but also the Apsaras are taken in form of traditional dance by like the Cambodian Royal Ballet. and performed by many women, even the male roles. So in a sense, it was like kind of like my only way to see some sort of female representation within my culture. And then I was making this piece, it was like, as I was kind of, there were some ways the clay was like fighting back at me, and it was kind of gesturing this motion. And I thought, yeah, it does feel like it's like a mother taking care of a womb, but like somehow still doing that with a very precarious pedestal, but is still able to go on, I guess.
It kind of like told you how it wanted to be formed too.
Yeah, that's how I work
That's
with a lot of
beautiful.
my that's how I work a lot with my materials. They kind of talk back to me. A lot of play and working through the material is how I work mainly in my process. Yeah. And then I guess with the case of quickly about her basket, it was about a memory I've had, because I've recently lost my grandmother back in 2020 when the pandemic just started, and we were going through her things, and I found this really funny, like, you know, just a regular generic basket, a plastic basket, and I saw her clothes in it with all like the traditional like fabrics and some scarves and like maybe her traditional clothing back from Cambodia. And I just thought of her body almost contained within that basket, like as if she was in that casket. So it's kind of like, in a weird way, like remembering her at that moment and trying to make this vessel kind of feel like it contained her body.
That's a beautiful homage to also your family too. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
And for Bumin, I was wanting to talk to you about, I mean, I've seen some of your works around town. I've only been in Dallas for 2 years, so it's not like I know too much about everything that's been around here. But I mean, I've seen many of these kind of op art works made out of these carefully arranged bands of colored threads that you attach to wood panels, like this one, Cascade number 4, that's in the show. And I also noticed in this, in Bumin, your other works for the show, these kind of more experimental or unfinished works with the colored threads where they're just loose and hanging off the canvas, or such as these two, or also in this, I love this delightfully whimsical one with the threads being uneven, and even a few you can see at the very bottom kind of teasingly and deliberately left off or left alone. So I just this feeling that you're from this striving for perfect optical illusion with the earlier work or the first work that we saw, to now also this more relaxed relationship to illusion and letting, in a way, the material naturally behave as it will. I wonder, Bumin, can you talk about your choice of colored threads, which you mentioned in your introduction to your interest in that, and also whether this is a new direction or where this is going?
Okay, all right. So as you may see, that I use thread to create my art. Thread is an alternative to paint, draw, and make 3-dimensional works for my work. And I explore the nature of line and the potentials that this material has. And thread and string elicit memories of the actions of weaving and stitching, both for utilitarian purposes and to serve as metaphor for joining two separate entities. When I was a kid, I saw my mother fixate stuff with sewing a lot of times, such as a hole on my socks and bags got torn off. So I was a little kid back then, so I thought my mother can like heal something like doctors. But when you think about it, like, yes, doctors stitch up the skin using needle and thread to, you know, to help to heal some part of, you know, the wound. So at first I was thinking about the idea of healing, and it was starting point that I used thread into my artwork at first when I was an undergrad student. And I don't think about the healing, the idea of healing too much right now, but back then that was a starting point. And in Korea, there is a 1,000-year length of history of women sewing for wages to support their families. And I think it had been there until 80s. So women in that period must have like dreams to do that they were willing to make it, but the reality wasn't on their side. But not for every woman, for those of who faced the harsh reality. So, but I believe that they were really strong mothers. So when I started using thread, it was related with mothers and women who are devoted to their families. It's not a symbol of thread for me right now, but I still see that thread gives me that sort of sorrowful, but at the same time warm feelings and hopeful messages that embraces my heart. So, but now I'm more interested in transformative power of materiality. I've repurposed the context of thread to emphasize their energy, delicacy, and grace of painting. Both the weight of line as thin and singular and the collection of lines as solid form are sensitive truths found in my work. Speaking of my inspiration, my inspirations come from natural scenes that are everywhere in my daily life and in my memories. And I think nature has powerful energies, like carrying with them a lot of information and feels. So while exploring sceneries, they sometimes make me think of poetic and lyrical expressions like that piece. The moon seems like an eye of the night sky looking at me, or a small cascade seems like a purple rainbow, like and such. So these inspirations and thoughts and emotions that I feel are visually translated into subtle hues and colors and lines and forms and in my work. So that work on the slide, like the pink one. Yeah. So speaking of this piece briefly, I made the one that on the left first, and I liked the geometric shape of the pink edges, and I wanted to see how that shape will look like if it was upside down. So I made the one on the right. And while working on this piece, I was thinking that like those edges can be interweaving patterns if I have like a bunch of them on the wall. Sorry. And those kind of small work are my experimentation and play. And they are always important part of my process, like enabling me to test the limits of material and my ideas. Some are just studies to create intriguing forms or just fresh ideas that I can show a part of my personality. So for the next piece, okay, so this one is titled Moonstruck, and it was made in 2018. And when I was a little kid, as I said, I saw my mother sewing a lot of times, and she had this big container that was filled with all colored thread and sewing materials. And I really loved playing with it, even though my mother said no. But I wanted reinterpret these memories into this piece. And as Vivian said, the bottom part. So one of my friends told me that I didn't finish this work because on the bottom left, there is uneven part of the thread. I was initially going to cut bottom straight, but then I didn't cut all of them because I wanted to just leave a shape of the middle of the process. I think that could be like very intriguing. So I did that. And all these work are connected with the characteristic of material and also my childhood and also all my experiences living in this life. I think they are growing together. So yeah.
Thank you, Bumin. That's especially exciting. This new direction. I can see them could be very interesting and larger scale too, but they're very beautiful in the show in their smaller scale forms.
Thank you.
And I guess moving on to thinking like maybe playing on this idea that Bumin and also Adrianna have been speaking about too, about nature and memory, as well as the optics, kind of also optical illusion and these linear forms. It was also interesting in the show to see that many of the artists, or many of you all were working with technology as well, and combining that, whether it's digital or print technology, combining that with ideas of nature and also art historical forms that have been associated with nature in Asian art, specifically in the works of Sangmi, Kazuko, and Hugo's. So Sangmi, do you want to start us out by, because this is, I think you can talk a whole talk on this, because there's so much going on in your installation and this work as well as your second work as well. But could you just maybe, Sangmi, talk about your various sources that you're working with in this work and also in your other work too in the show? Especially I'm fascinated by the ideas of transparency that you introduce in your work. I was thinking of references when I was looking at your work of not only optical illusion, but also camouflage, paper cutouts, weaving, especially with the kind of structural part of this work in particular. So yes, whatever references that you can unpack for us.
Thank you, Vivian, for introducing my work. So currently I'm working on some botanical themes, but I'm not really titled as a botanical artist per se. Houses and plants, those are kind of guises for me to talk about things behind. So they're like a conceptual foil about things untold. So when I went to the Chicago's Botanic Garden, this is like more than 10 years ago, I was kind of impressed by the amount of similarities and traditional upkeep they created for these Asian gardens, such as a Japanese garden that they had. As I recollect my memory about some Korean palace gardens, they are more modernized than what Americans would think about. So they kind of go by the time, but what's represented, such public gardens in the built environment represented in the United States, I think it's the same in some European gardens. Those garden replicas are very traditional, archetypal tradition, stereotypical kind of models. It's like a model house in a way. So it's kind of fascinating to me how problematic it is and how interesting it is. So that became my starting point. And in the way how I compare what I think the Asianness is and what Americans think Asianness is. So it's always interesting to see, to compare my private self and identity and the public self. So that goes side by side with some mainstream ideas and this otherness as being Asian. So it's kind of ironic that I depicted some gardens and plants because I'm not a gardener. So I don't really take a whole ownership about having knowledge about particular species. I'm working on it. And I also mix with some kind of camouflage sciences, especially the camouflage patterns designed by some bunch of British modern marine artists headed by Norman Wilkinson, in the way how they created such camouflage as in their warships, dazzle ship camouflage. It turned out to be unsuccessful, but it kind of brought in some attention to me as I was navigating through the political situation since 2016, through Trump government and some national defense system amongst all those foreign countries and global locations. So I thought it was kind of interesting to bring in such camouflage mixed with some of my cultural heritage, as in sekdong stripes in Korea. So it kind of mixed with my personal self and collective self. So there's other kinds of, if you can scroll through all the way back, this piece over here, I also adapted some post-digital media, such as CNC routing and laser cutting. So, because I'm a printmaker in my heart, so I wanted to use that serial quality as in print, seeing the new technology as a way to provide some matrices. And also the cookie cutter homes, tract homes often found in on the edge of the cities, especially the city that I'm living in, Lubbock, Texas, where you can see the periodic houses according to the blocks of the cities. That was very profound to be found when I moved here. So that became my inspiration to begin my life here. So I've been using that technology mixed with other visual references, sekdong and camouflage and so forth. So I also draw certain parallel to my modernist education from back in Korea, where Koreans invented this monochrome. It's a kind of trend of Korean minimalism. Unlike having particular philosophy as in minimalist attitude, Koreans created color as a scheme for minimalism. So they adapted into that system by using a single color per paintings, for instance, or sculptures. So I came from that background, utilizing certain minimalistic strategy while adapting some felt sculptures as in Robert Morris and living in West Texas, by the way. I'm kind of sporadic a little bit, but Donald Judd's serial quality, that is kind of a typical thing that I picked up since I moved here. So there's some kind of learning and understanding of some very kind of pronounced art movements that are embedded in the location. So I try to adapt into those situations, not just creating a stasis, only sticking to my own cultural heritages. And shadows coming from the layering, that is actually came from a total accident from one of my solo exhibitions at Redux Contemporary Art Center in Charleston, South Carolina. Because I was hanging pieces on site with very labor-intensive processes, and I just saw the cast shadows on the wall. I was gonna paint the wall and layer the felt sculpture that I created, but I just enjoy what it shaped. So I just stuck to it and embraced that accident. Embracing accident is something that I embedded as a printmaker, because as much as I'm a type A person to upkeep the perfection of the prints, I really enjoy the accidental nature, the process, certain processes give. So I just take it.
Definitely you work with a lot of different references like art historically over time
this is
and culturally
kind of
as well.
over the span of 15 years or something. So
it's very clear, especially with the use of color. And I think that's also a great segue to Kazuko's similar, I guess, minimal use of color that you spoke about, Sangmi. That Kazuko, I think you made such very exquisite, very fine prints, actually 2 prints, and also 2 sumi ink paintings as well. So Kazuko, can you just share with us some of your own ideas and references that you are making in these very beautiful and intimate paintings and prints that you contributed to the show?
Okay. Thank you for introducing. And so I like my time. Like, I don't know how to explain this, but I do. I like find at the time that I shut off from the other stuff. So when I'm in garden and like pulling the weed out from the ground, and those, I value those time a lot. So I do print. I'm a printmaker like Sangmi, but I don't really use technology like, unlike many other printmakers. I like hand carving because of that. I like the sense of just kind of being myself and work little by little and do the very, very repetitive work. So it kind of connects to how I like to live. I think that's how I like to make prints. So not so much about the image itself, but the process itself kind of relates to my concept. So I think by doing stuff like quietly by myself, like I really think about lots of things, and sometimes it relates to my past, or sometimes it relates to the people. So for prints and for my paintings, that's my cat Sumi. And she keeps me company. And I do, like, this one is the image on the right. I do draw the little shapes with the pencil. And that's kind of how I worked with that one of the drawings I have in the show, the rosemary piece, the black and white one, black and with the blue flowers. And every day, anytime I have. So unlike a print, which I spend like chunk of time usually when I start printing, but drawing, I spend maybe, if I have 5 minutes between cooking, I go in the studio and draw maybe 5 little shapes. And then I go back cooking and I come back and do more. And that really keep me calm and like peaceful. And same as when I put the colors on. And I think it's kind of like when I'm in garden, I do same thing. And that's kind of how I put this image on the left. And I like to sit in the backyard and peel. This is end of my year, summer season ritual. I love this black soybeans, which I got the first cheese from my mom. I know it's illegal, but I put it here. It's supposed to be food, but you cannot find it here. So I keep growing. This is my 5th year to save the seeds and then put it back on the ground and grow back. And then so every end of summer, I have to do this year too. I sit down for hours and pop those seeds from the pods. And that's kind of how I work with my artwork. And it's really about the moment that I have in my heart. So I create. And so it's really nothing really strong about it. So my work is that's probably why my color is really light. And like a little bit not so clear sometimes. But I kind of want to capture the moment that through that shape and color and just kind of how I feel, or how it can maybe trigger somebody in the same feel. So
that's beautiful how you talked about like how it's incorporated very much into your life, like the art making, and you pick it up and then you do other things and then you come back to it. And
Yeah.
definitely it is about that
Yeah.
moment, delicacy.
Yes, and carving too. That's why I do that woodcut.
Mhm.
I do like to just carve and and spend some time, but this I can stop and come back again and and also touching, just like I do with the gardening. I touch surface of the wood multiple times and I touch the paper and I have to constantly, when I print it, that's the progress on the printing. But when I print, I have to, the Japanese woodcut is slightly different and it works with the water a lot. So the wood has to be dumped, paper has to be dumped, and you have to constantly feel how moist each material feels. So I'm touching everything and I'm feeling it. And I think for me, the end product, the image is important, but the process that I kind of value or I nurture is really important for my work too.
Thank you so much, Kazuko. That was very beautiful, and getting some insight into how you also, it's very intimate, your experience with the materials as well, and incorporating your life. I mean, it's very much an artistic life. And then Hugo, I guess it's a very different going from that interpretation and relationship to nature and your art. And Hugo, it was very interesting seeing your animated digital paintings, and maybe if you can unpack that in itself, just animated digital paintings, how you're incorporating in the, and it did, there's one slide of the installation of your work. There's Adrianna's basket in front, but where you also have it running as a video as well as the 4 paintings. And I believe there's also some AI or some kind of or AR application that you were trying to also animate the paintings with. So yeah, can you talk about how you also incorporate the digital into your interpretation of nature?
Okay. I started with the creating a linear drawing with a pen and ink on paper first. Even though the linear drawing serves as a backbone of the digital painting, I feel that it can feel like a finished product in itself, because I believe that the black and white line has their own beauty. However, after the drawing phase, I scanned the works and then imported them into Photoshop. I will then paint over the line art and then manipulate the other aspects of the compositions, such as the hues, values, and then intensities. After that, I decided to animate some of these pieces. I hope that you will add another dimensions to the work. Also, I add augmented reality viewing experience to some of these works. I used an app called Artivive, and everybody can use that. This will allow the viewer to interact with the pieces in a more direct and then personal view. And then talking about the references or influences, I think these pieces draw from several traditional Eastern influences. The linear approach can be traced back to Chinese woodblock illustrations from the Ming Dynasty, and then the Japanese woodblock prints. Some of the nature motifs are inspired by a mustard seed garden drawing book, a book compiled in Qing Dynasty. And then also there are many motifs found in traditional Chinese landscape painting. For instance, the waterfalls, the birds and the mountains and the trees. instead of depicting the sceneries in realistic manner as with the traditional Western art, I used a linear structure and then motifs to achieve this goal. These motifs function as a simplified, exaggerated, and then symbolic visual building blocks, which I used to construct the world I was trying to depict. And then inspiration also was also taken from the traditional Chinese brush and ink landscape paintings, especially the works of artists from the Northern Song period, such as Phan and Wang Ximeng. In the meantime, as an artist trained in the Western art tradition, I have incorporated stylistic details inspired by the paintings and the drawings from the Gothic and the early Renaissance era in Europe.
I mean, definitely also how you're bringing it to the level, like a digital kind of kinetic, almost making them videos or also and animating them. That's very interesting. I guess maybe this is a good segue into the Q&A portion now. Thank you so much to all the artists for sharing each of your individual works. And maybe I'll stop sharing too, just to get us all into one screen again. But I guess maybe also to end this portion and segue into that to the Q&A and open it up for everybody else to also ask questions. This is very much a show about nature and different approaches to nature. That's everybody has their own unique ideas and techniques, materials that they're working with. But I also didn't want to ignore also the other focus of the show, that it is decidedly also a show of Asian American artists working with nature as well. And so to also address and kind of honor that idea of the show, just a question to all the artists is what does it mean to you to be part of a show with all other Asian American artists as well? You can, however you want to interpret that, whether it's something of the times or something that you find, anything that you find also that you gained from the show in that way. And also Narong, Kim, maybe that also, since you were the to just get people to think about or reflect on that too. In many ways, being the curator is kind of like you're planning a dinner party, or you're the host of the dinner party. You have no control what will happen at the dinner party, but you are the one who sets the theme and also assess the guest list. So maybe just starting with Narong and Kim actually might make sense to think about how you came up with this idea to organize such a show of artists working with Asian imagery or inspired imagery about nature. And also I would be curious to hear about how you chose the title, which I find very fascinating.
Yeah, Kim and I wanted to have an Asian themed show, but we didn't want it to have just an Asian themed show. So we kind of want to narrow down to artists that talk about nature. I think nature is a timeless topic, timeless theme. So we organized the show 2 years ago, before COVID and the rise of Asian violence. So we kind of want an exhibition that is timeless and enduring. So if anyone can view this exhibition, no matter what period of time they are in. So we chose the title Tree with Half a Root because we were like looking for show titles, and I was like Googling it up. Like we want something like poetic, but I pulled up this Chinese proverb that says tree without a root. And I thought that this is too severe. So me and Kim were talking about maybe tree with half a root to kind of symbolize us as being off this earth, being on this land away from our homes. but not able to fully be accepted. We kind of standing on this ground that's not for us, not fertile, but we still grow and flourish. So it's kind of like homage to nature being healing, rejuvenation, but also a love letter to our people that able to make it in this land. So that's kind of like a little backstory with the exhibition. I don't know, Kim, you might have some thoughts to contribute as well.
Yeah, oh, so Sangmi is leaving, so I'm just going to read the thing that she actually wrote about the title, because I think, it's resonated with a lot of people, but she specifically wanted to say, I like the title in terms of how these artists are located in between the cultures and locations, not to mention where they belong, how they adapt to unfamiliar places and kind of flourish as an artist. So like going off of that, I was always, kind of an art history nerd, right? As I mentioned before, and I'm really interested in like migration and diaspora. And a lot of research interests are kind of based in your own personal history. I am a daughter of immigrants and stuff like that, right? This exhibition itself kind of really grew out of relationships, right? Just moving around in the art scene around here. I met Narong, and then he knows a bunch of other people. And I also know like AAP artists just locally to Fort Worth, right? And we invited everybody. And I had so much like respect and kind of like admiration of people when I was doing or sending out these emails and texts about inviting people, just anxiously waiting, like, oh, come on, please. But for me, it was really, it started off like really aesthetically beautiful. I always return to nature myself. Like I love going hiking. I love like gardens. My partner is a very avid gardener. So we're just sitting at home with like these beautiful contemplative spaces, or going out to the mountains and seeing like how awe-inspiring it is and how we can interpret it. I think from an artistic standpoint, it's always been a topic of interest, whether in Western culture and Eastern culture. But I feel like there's a certain flair that Asian artists bring to it that I can't necessarily describe. Like I remember when we're in a planning meeting with Vivian, she was like, "There's no people here, right? Like there's no figuration or anything specific about it." But the artists here, they have like a really emotional response to it, a really kind of like abstracting but also being in a very human way. I don't know, like, what do you think, Narong?
Yeah, we kind of pick artists that had diverse backgrounds and themes. I don't know, maybe because we just kind of pick some people, and Kim, you pick some people. And for some reason, like the mediums they work, they alternate and they don't overlap as much. I don't know. I feel like it's maybe just the luck, the draw, or the stars align or some kind of thing. But I don't think we tried too hard to pick the artists. It kind of just came together.
Yeah, it was a very collaborative process for sure.
Yeah. And I think the next question to the artist, I think how do y'all felt like coming together as a community, because it's just so rare to have an exhibition of just Asian artists or AAPI artists together. So I don't know, I think it's a rare thing. So I don't know how the artists might felt with this come together dinner party of sorts.
I'll say something. I feel like it was a great opportunity to see all our work together, especially working around the space. Like, even like just talking here together, we talk about shared interests, like, childhood memories, food, things of that nature. And I guess for me, it's pretty important to be engaged with community. So in a sense too, that I know where my roots come from. I guess I'm also interpreting the title of the show, nature, as in like, or like using nature imagery as in also like, I guess metaphorically, like my nature roots in like, I guess in a sense, Cambodian identity or Cambodian ancestry and things of that. So for me to be in a part of a group of other Asian Americans and seeing how these other ideas kind of weave in together and these similar themes working in together, I think that makes it the sense of community feel a lot stronger, at least in my opinion. I don't know if anyone else has any other thoughts, but yeah, I just ran out of words.
No, I would agree. Oh, sorry, you can go ahead.
Okay. I can echo what Adrianna is saying, because I think for our culture, like we have rice together, having rice talk are the most important part that we routinely use in Vietnamese. So I think having dinner on the table is pretty much sharing a meal is so important. So that communal kind of thing, it is like I actually only know, Narong and Adrianna. So I pretty much get to know all the artists better. It's such a good feeling to know other Asian artists doing this kind of work out there. Routinely, I'm so close in, so focused into my own works and not being out there and see a nuts other, So I think this is very, I'm very grateful to have this opportunity, and also work, get to know all the other artists as well. Thank you.
Okay, I just want to say I'm very grateful to be able to be part of this show. When we draw something or paint something or do something about art, we are talking about ourselves. So I believe everybody in the show trying to bring out, a real self to the community, and then we share ideas and then exchange ideas. I think it's great things to do. Yeah, thank you very much.
Do we have questions from the audience before we conclude the talk at 3:30? You may unmute yourself.
I just have a comment. I'm so grateful to be introduced to all of your work. It was just like so moving, and just thinking about and I love the title and the concept between of tree with half a root, because I'm seeing there's these very material elements and working with the hands. So we're as artists, we're rooted in the material, but then there's also a transcendent quality that's also where we draw our other roots, and then where they merge together is what makes all of this work so powerful. I'm so inspired right now, so thank you. And then also, the rooting, there's so many unknowns in life, right? So being rooted in the known and what we know from our experiences, from our practice, from life lessons, and then trying to root ourselves in the unknown so that we can kind of pull it into the known, so that we could be more stable. There's something about that too that I really love about the concept. And I love how delicate the work is, and how in thinking about nature and the temporality of nature, it forces us to look at things like death and honor life through death, and honor the ones that have passed in such intimate ways. And I just want to thank you for the courage to do that, because it's not easy to talk about these things, but it's easier to work on these things so that we might be able to share. I just want to say thank you. And I'm so inspired right now. So congratulations.
Thank you.
So Corey submitted a question. She says, has this show changed how any of the artists or curators experience their own work, or made way for ideas moving forward?
Okay, I can speak first. I think for me doing installation work, I'm learning from every installation, you know, and I'm very grateful to have help. Like I have two of my students, and also Allison, I have to thank her. She also have Tina helping me. So it's very interesting that routinely having the conversation with my helpers. Tina, when she helped me with install one of the piece, she felt like every single piece, like threading the needles every time she had to put each of the Y piece onto the wall, and how challenging it is. But for me, I expect to finish that installation in one day. But when I went in there without expecting, that wall is the biggest challenge for me to have to face. So what I end up being one day's installation end up to be 3 or 4 days. And for me, it's not about that. I find that struggling. Putting that Y piece on the wall is something that I'm really learning through. That I thought I never realizing I learn every time through installation how different walls putting a Y into the drilling a small drill holes and putting a Y could be the simple process, could be that challenging. Yet that challenging also lead me into a different experience, that meditative experience. In some way, I'm not sure if I explained it clearly. Thank you.
And also, you know, from a curatorial standpoint, it's kind of shows like these that get feedback, like Trin's feedback, very beautifully said. I think that's kind of what makes us want to put on more shows like this. I'm sure Kim shared the sentiment as well, just to keep going. That's an inspiration right there.
No, me and Narong just kept talking about how like perfect and like how much of a relaxing process this is. I don't know if a lot of people have organized exhibitions before, but like there's always an opportunity for it to be complete stressful chaos. But for me, especially last year, it was just like I could work on it little by little, and it was just little communications. We're all like getting back in touch with each other, and seeing how we're doing and things like that. It was like a process of 2 years, but for me, it was just like this very peaceful and like just this little like echoes of interaction that I wanted and craved for so desperately, right? And it was weird to see how it is in reality now, because everything was over a computer, right? Like it was just over emails and just sharing on folders. But for me, I felt that it just gave me a perspective of giving a lot of grace to people and just kind of letting things unfold and seeing how that would happen.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining our Tree with Half a Root virtual panel talk. We appreciate so much for everyone being on the talk, asking questions, especially special thanks to Dr. Vivian Lee for moderating this talk. It's such a pleasure having you. And also, of course, thank you so much to our participating artists, Lu, Adrianna, Hugo, Bumin, Kazuko, and Sangmi. Of course, and if you feel that we're always welcome to answer questions offline. And yeah, you know where to reach us, and have a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye, guys. Everyone.